Well, by all accounts, WB Discovery will be split up and it will be approved by next spring. Enter Sony, again, who is allegedly right now looking at the split and will be moving to acquire the HBO and Films brand from WB Discovery when the split happens, effectively putting them back into a position where they would actually have sustainability in Hollywood and not be on their way out. So here's what's going on with the WB. Despite the fact that they are going to be taking the singular company right now, WB Discovery, and splitting it up into two separate brands, aka Films and TV Streaming, which will be like, their film division and Max, while the other side of that, their sports, their news, and their linear TV networks like TBS, TNT, and all that will be off on their own. They will still have a substantial amount of debt that they need to pay off before they're profitable. Currently, the company sits at $38 billion of debt. When they split up, it's estimated that it's going to be split 50-50, but it could be that WB, the film and TV side, or the HBO side, I should say, only takes about 10 to 15, while the rest goes to the linear TV, as that might be easier to pay off due to commercials and ad placement and all that, which is the old model. So WB, even after the split, both divisions will still have a massive amount of debt, and that is a massive problem. So WB, for lack of a better term, will still be in shambles come next year when this whole thing is approved. Now, this is where you have the keen eye snipers that are the acquisition side of multiple billion-dollar companies and Sony. Enter Sony trying to buy WB. So recent reports have suggested that Sony is looking to boost their portfolio by acquiring more assets. Now, currently, the only valuable property that Sony has that makes them money is Spider-Man, which is shared with Disney and Marvel Studios. And on their own, what they're doing is licensing out properties to some of their, competitors. The Boys from Amazon is a Sony property. They're also putting Spider-Man Noir on there. And again, that's a co-shared property with licensing fees and various things, and if we get into merchandise, that's murky waters. So what Sony is doing is looking to boost their portfolio by acquiring everything WB owns in terms of IP. Now, the big deal here is that this is not the first time this happened. Some of you might remember, and this might jot your memory in case you forgot, remember that Sony, when WB was being targeted by Discovery, also positioned themselves to buy WB. And even recently, they were looking and partnering up with people to try to make other acquisitions. I believe at one point there was the Apollo Group that they teamed up with. I could be wrong on that name. I think it was the Apollo Group, and that they were set to go after some targets out there, including WB, but the deal fell through. They couldn't reach it in time. This, again, is another issue for Sony, because if acquisitions and strategic moves aren't made, they will find themselves in the exact position WB is in, where they're losing a stranglehold on even the amount of ground that they had. So what they're looking at is all the big franchises that WB has. So think about the catalog on HBO. Think about all those legacy properties that they own. Think about all the big names, all the characters, the rich history of content that continues to be mishandled by WB. There's tons of it, and we mean tons of it. But of course, their biggest target, I would assume, is getting their hands on arguably the two richest properties that are owned by WB. And these are DC and Harry Potter. So make no mistake about it, Sony's after the big guns. Now, if they get DC, you guys know what happens with Spider-Man. He's straight back to Marvel because conflict. They can't own a rival's property and then own their own comic book company. So Spider-Man goes back. We don't need to focus on that. What we need to focus on is the strategic move. Sony acquires DC. They got comics. Not only that, though, they got the entire universe under themselves. And now they can hopefully do what they need to survive in the blockbuster business. On top of this, they got a couple more things in the motion. If they get their hands on Harry Potter and they work out that deal with J.K. Rowling, which would essentially be, we're just going to keep doing what they're doing, and let's say it happens within the next 3 to 4 years, which would be the estimate of when they could complete this purchase if it succeeds, they're going to be, shooting the 3rd season of Harry Potter? All they got to do is say, we commit to continuing this. And they're locked in. But people aren't thinking about the big picture with the Harry Potter brand. Sony loves exclusivity and things you can only get from them. So imagine them inheriting WB studio lots and also WB parks and all the licensing that comes from Harry Potter, and then taking DC and making a DC land. To further make a point that can really drive it home, imagine suddenly you enter the 2030s, right? They can give up their huge licensing fees that you have for Marvel characters like Spider-Man, Wolverine, and X-Men. They now in-house can exclusively make Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman games. Also, the sequel to Harry Potter games, the last one that sold well over 25 million, that's their property, their synergy, their ability to make it their own. They suddenly become the number 2 location and place and studio in Hollywood without even trying. That's why they're making these moves. Because if they don't make these moves, they're going to be lost. And Sony will be on borrowed time. And they've been on borrowed time for a while, but luckily being able to strike deals that work, like working with Netflix and working with the likes of Amazon, have saved them. So in due time, we're going to find out more. But these reports about them assembling for another sale, they're true. Because Sony knows they have a limited amount of time and they need to get in when it's hot. And things are right now as hot as they're going to get in terms of WB, again, within 3 years, splitting and taking assets and offloading them. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.